Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're getting into something pretty universal, actually navigating the emotional roller coaster after a breakup. That real mix of pain, confusion, maybe just feeling lost.
It's a really tough time. You often feel completely unmoored trying to figure out this new reality, right?
Exactly. And so, in this deep dive, we really want to explore a pretty powerful way to work through those intense feelings, find a bit of clarity amid the storm, and, really start that healing
We're
process.
focusing on journaling. It sounds simple, maybe, but it offers such profound benefits for self-reflection, emotional processing, especially when a relationship ends. Just getting those tangled thoughts and feelings down on paper can be incredibly freeing.
Yeah, it's like you give those swirling emotions a physical place to exist, which somehow makes them feel, I don't know, a bit more manageable. We've been looking into this, and it's interesting how having a dedicated space, a specific journal, can really support that. We've seen resources mentioning Listallian journals, for instance, known for their really nice paper and design, making it feel like a proper space for this work.
Yeah, and using a journal like a Listallian, it's interesting. The physical quality actually matters, I think. The weight of the paper, that soft cover, it sends a signal, doesn't it? That this is a specific, important space for your thoughts, your healing. It's not just, grabbing any old notepad.
Right. It elevates it, makes
Yeah.
it feel intentional, like a ritual. So today, we'll unpack why journaling is so effective for healing. We'll look at how it helps with those really common post-breakup struggles. We've even got a story, Mia's story, that illustrates the impact beautifully.
And we'll cover practical tips, too, how to actually do it effectively. Plus, how journaling aligns with the different emotional phases you go through, and ultimately, how this whole process can turn pain into real personal growth.
And we'll touch on why certain features, things you might find in a journal like a Listallian, like the page count, that thick 120 GSM paper, even numbered pages and a table of contents,
Ah,
why those details can actually be surprisingly helpful during this specific time.
absolutely. It's about setting up a practice that aids reflection and lets you, well, track your journey. Those features aren't just aesthetics. They offer genuine practical advantages when you're sorting through complex stuff.
Okay, let's really dig into this then. Why journaling? Why is it such a powerful tool when you're trying to pick up the pieces after a breakup? Because honestly, it can feel like your whole world just imploded.
That's a good way to put it. Think of it like an emotional earthquake. Journaling is your way to um, assess the damage, see the cracks, and start planning the rebuild. It lets you take all that internal chaos and put it somewhere external. By writing, you start to understand the pain better, validate your own experience, which is huge when you're doubting everything, and get a clearer view on what happened and how you really feel. It's like containing the storm.
Containing the storm, I like that. It's giving your feelings a voice, even if only you hear it on the page. And
Right.
like you said, the act itself, just writing, can be so therapeutic. Processing that raw stuff, anger, sadness, maybe even, unexpected relief. Getting it out of your head feels lighter, doesn't it? Like emptying a cup that's just too full.
Exactly. It stops those feelings from just festering inside. And beyond that, there's the self-reflection piece, which is just invaluable. Journaling gives you that private space to look at the relationship, not necessarily to blame, but to understand the dynamics, maybe spot some patterns. That kind of insight is often what helps you make different choices down the line. Learning the lessons without getting stuck.
That makes total sense. Building wisdom without letting the experience define you. And I can see how that process, understanding yourself better, would directly help rebuild self-worth. Because breakups,
Oh,
wow, they can really knock your confidence, leave you feeling not good enough.
Oh, absolutely. And journaling is where you can actively fight back against that. You dedicate space to remind yourself of your strengths, your good qualities, the growth you've already achieved inside the relationship and out. It shifts the focus from loss to what's still there and what you can build.
Yeah.
But it's not just looking back. Journaling is also really powerful for looking forward. Once that initial intensity eases a bit, having a place to articulate new dreams, new goals, personal growth, future relationships, career stuff, it can be incredibly empowering. It's taking that first step towards a new horizon.
Actively sketching out what's next. And thinking about those features like numbered pages and a table of contents, which you find in journals like Listallian, that suddenly seems really useful for this. You can literally track your journey, go back to those early, maybe really painful entries, and see how far you've actually come. It's tangible proof of your resilience.
Yeah, being able to revisit and see your own evolution. That's incredibly motivating. It's concrete evidence that you can heal, you're growing, you see the shifts in your thinking, your emotions over time. Very encouraging.
So we see the general power, but let's talk specifics. Those really common hurdles people face after a breakup, like feeling stuck in the past, just replaying memories, good or bad, or that awful nagging self-doubt, and of course the loneliness, that huge void, and maybe even just trying not to feel anything, suppressing it all.
Yes, all very real, very common responses. And journaling offers ways to tackle each one for feeling stuck in the past. Well, writing down those recurring memories, actually exploring them on the page, can strangely create distance. It gives them a defined place outside your immediate thoughts, lessening their grip on your present moment.
That's interesting. Not burying the past, but processing it so you can actually live now. Okay, what about the self-doubt? How does writing help fight that feeling of not being good enough?
That's where you actively journal about your strengths, your wins, things you like about yourself, things you're proud of. It's a conscious effort to counter the negative narrative. And tied to that, gratitude journaling can be surprisingly powerful. Even when things feel bleak, noting down small positives, good friends, a cozy evening, even just a decent cup of coffee, it gently shifts your focus away from just the loss.
Consciously shifting focus. I get that. And I imagine as you start seeing those positives, acknowledging your strengths, it builds a bit of hope, which probably helps with the loneliness, that feeling of emptiness.
Exactly. And then creating a vision for your future in the journal, outlining goals, things you want to try, the person you want to become, that actively rebuilds confidence and drive. It redirects your energy towards creating a life you value on your own terms. And when you're doing all this, navigating these tricky thoughts, features like those dashed lines in some journals, like the Stallions, they offer just enough structure without being rigid, room for focus, but also for just letting the emotions flow.
Yeah, that balance sounds key, especially when you feel emotionally all over the place. Now, to make this really concrete, let's talk about Mia's story. It's fictitious, but I found it really captured how this can play out.
Mia's experience is so relatable. Long-term relationship over 5 years ends,
Right.
and she's just adrift. That feeling of your whole routine being gone, the self-doubt kicking in, and that particular kind of grief that hits hardest when things are quiet, like at night. Very real.
Totally. And she starts journaling using a Lestalian notebook as her sort of safe space. And initially, those pages were just raw anger, confusion, what went wrong, missing the shared life, just pouring it all out.
But then she started using prompts, which
Mhm.
acted like little guideposts, right? Helping her explore things more deliberately. Questions like, what are 3 lessons I learned from this relationship? That encourages reflection. Or what are 5 things I love about myself? Directly countering the self-doubt. And even something simple, like how can I practice self-care today? That became vital for nurturing herself.
Those prompts are great. I had a friend who used similar ones after a breakup, said it felt like having a gentle coach right there on the page. And for Mia, through doing this consistently, things started to shift. She began setting new goals, prioritizing self-care, reconnecting with her friends, remembering her support system. And there is this element of self-forgiveness too, starting to see that breakups, while awful, are sometimes just part of life.
That acceptance piece is huge in healing. And for me, the story highlights how the Lestallian journal became more than just paper. It was a companion. She mentioned the soft cover feeling comforting, using the back pocket for little keepsakes. Not to dwell, but to acknowledge the past and see how far she'd moved on.
Yeah, it really evolved, didn't it? From just an emotional outlet to a guide for healing, growth, and eventually looking towards new beginnings. It shows how a journal can become this tangible record of your resilience.
It really does. A powerful example of how that intentional reflection in a supportive space leads to real growth.
Okay, so for anyone listening, maybe going through this right now, thinking about journaling, how do you actually do it effectively? Because that blank page can feel pretty daunting sometimes.
That's a fair point. Structure can help. A good first step is a simple daily check-in. Just 5-10 minutes, write down how you feel today without judging it. Angry, sad, hopeful, numb, confused, whatever it is. Just noticing those patterns is the start of self-awareness. It's that daily touch point.
Building that awareness, like taking an emotional snapshot each day. And then, like with Mia, using prompts can really help if you're stuck. Those examples, lessons learned, self-care, appreciating yourself, great starting points to dig a bit deeper.
Definitely. And another technique that can be really powerful is writing letters you never sent. One to your ex, get all the feelings out, the good, the bad, the ugly, without any filter or consequence. And then write one to your future self. Offer yourself some encouragement, some hope. It's surprisingly comforting, like talking to the version of you that's already through the worst of it.
Oh, I like that idea. A message of hope from your future self. What about shifting focus outwards a bit?
That's where gratitude journaling is fantastic. Even amidst the pain, consciously listing small positives, a friend's kindness, enjoying a song, a moment of peace, it gently pulls your focus from what's lost to what you still have. It builds resilience. And finally, setting new goals and using affirmations. Nailing down what you want next: career, hobbies, personal growth, and pairing that with positive statements like, I'm worthy of love, or each day I get stronger. That rebuilds purpose and belief. And, having things like comfortably spaced lines, like in a list stallion, helps here too. Structure for the focus stuff, but still room to just write freely when you need to.
Provide support without being too restrictive. Okay, we know healing isn't straight line. Good days, bad days. Are there typical emotional phases people go through, and how does journaling fit into each one?
Yeah, while everyone's path is different, there are often phases we can recognize. First up is often shock and denial. The reality hasn't fully hit. You might feel numb, maybe disbelieving. A journaling tip here is actually just to write down the facts. What happened? When? Grounding yourself in the reality, even if it's painful, is a step towards acceptance.
Okay, just stating the facts to anchor yourself. What tends to come after that initial shock wears off?
Often, anger and resentment surface. Anger at the ex, yourself, the situation. Your journal is the perfect safe place for this. Vent it all out on the page. No judgment, no fallout. Writing it down is so much healthier than letting it spill out elsewhere, right? It's a private release valve.
For release valve, yeah. That makes sense. And after the anger starts to cool.
That's often when grief and loneliness really kick in. This can be the toughest phase. Deep sadness, missing them, grieving the shared life. It's totally normal. A helpful journaling practice here. Start a self-care list. Things that offer comfort, however small. Cozy socks, hot tea, a funny movie list. It's about actively finding ways to nurture yourself through the sadness.
Actively taking care of yourself when you feel that low.
Mhm.
And then hopefully eventually we move towards
Acceptance and growth. This is where a new normal starts to emerge. You begin to imagine a future on your own terms. Feel hopeful again. Journaling here shifts towards those future goals. We talked about new hobbies, relationship ideals, self-improvement plans. The journal becomes more of a roadmap forward. And this is where a feature like a built-in table of contents, like Stallion often has, is brilliant. You can easily flip back, see entries from the anger phase, the grief phase, and see tangible proof of how far you've come. It gives real perspective on your progress.
wow, yeah, being able to track that whole emotional arc visually must be incredibly validating. So finally, let's talk about the bigger picture, turning this pain into actual personal growth. Because breakups, as hard as they are, really can be these major turning points for self-discovery. How does journaling help make that happen?
It provides that essential space for reflection that fuels the growth. Looking back with the clarity journaling offers lets you spot unhealthy patterns maybe you couldn't see before. It helps you understand your own needs, much better what you really want in a partner in your life. Processing emotions privately means you build inner resilience. You're not solely reliant on others. And as you heal, the journal becomes a playground for exploring new interests, rediscovering who you are outside of that relationship. It's fundamentally about building a deeper, kinder relationship with yourself. Documenting the journey brings clarity, builds resilience, and really fuels your motivation for whatever comes next. And honestly, the physical experience matters too, writing on those smooth, thick pages, like the wood-free ivory ones in a Stallion. It makes the journal feel like a trusted companion in this process.
It really drives home that the end of a relationship isn't the end of your story. It's the start of a new chapter, maybe one that's even more you.
Precisely. And a journal, especially one that feels good to use, becomes a tangible symbol of that ongoing story, that journey forward.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, it's clear that getting through a breakup is tough, no doubt, but it's also fertile ground for growth. And a journal, maybe a really nice one like a Stallion, it's way more than just paper. It's a sanctuary, a tool for clarity, a launch pad for what's next.
It gives you that crucial private space, doesn't it? To
Mhm.
process things at your own speed, set new intentions, rebuild your confidence piece by piece, and just honor your own healing journey, whatever that looks like.
Absolutely. Those pages hold the past, sure, but they also hold the future, your dreams, your strength. Your story is still being written, and a journal is such a powerful way to help make it a story of resilience and growth.
Which leads to a final thought for you listening. How might consciously documenting your emotional journey, not just after breakups, but maybe through other big life changes too,
Yeah.
how might that give you invaluable insights for your future growth and maybe even shape your future relationships in really profound ways?